Everyone, welcome to Football Talk Podcast. My name's Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. I wasn't planning on doing a show today, but with this news breaking the airwaves in the last few hours, we have to talk about it, and that is regarding the future of Arne Slot. Plus, we'll speak about some of the transfer rumors surrounding players potentially leaving as well as joining the club. But before we begin, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let's talk about the big news that's been circulating today. It's not official news, so do take it with a pinch of salt. The rumor is that Liverpool have made a decision in regards to the future of Arne Slot, and there is a slight chance that he may be dismissed, and they've already identified another manager slash coach to take his place. So just to read a quote from a source, I think his name is Santi, owner of Foot Mercato, and he said, quote unquote, in the case of Arne Slot leaving Liverpool, Andoni Iraola is at the very top of the list. The wind is turning very quickly on the banks of the Mersey. Disappointed by the current dynamic, Liverpool's management does not rule out putting an end to Arne Slot's adventure at the head of the team. According to our information, he has discreetly activated a lead he knows perfectly, Andoni Iraola. It was Hughes himself who brought the Spanish technician to the Premier League during his previous duties at Bournemouth. The timing is perfect. And look, in regards to that quote from Santi Aona, it does make perfect sense. And this is something I spoke about a couple of days ago when I tried to assess the manager market and see who would be the right fit. The current name that's been thrown out there is Sebastian Hoeneß, who is, of course, the Stuttgart manager. But I have a feeling it could be Iraola, and I've got a bit more of a liking towards Iraola on the basis of what we've seen in the last 2, 3 years at Bournemouth. And of course, from a financial standpoint, he's going to be a free agent. So FSG don't need to worry about paying any compensation packages as it won't be required. And the most important thing that Santi Aona mentioned was that he's worked with Richard Hughes before. And Richard Hughes was the sporting director at Bournemouth that brought him over to the Premier League. So there's already an ongoing or a history in regards to a working relationship. And that might be the reason why I think Richard Hughes has decided that things aren't working out here. And he knows someone that would be the perfect fit in terms of the manager profile as well as the football philosophy that he presents at Bournemouth right now, which for me, is one of the most attractive looking football in the league. Like the way Bournemouth play is something I want to see at the club. And of course, if you look at our squad, he's worked with the likes of Kirkes, so that would be a good fit for him. And of course, he'll be working under a coach that knows how to get best out of him. And I truly believe that stylistically, this is probably the closest fit we'll get to Klopp's high intensity approach, or better known as heavy metal football. If Iraola was the new head coach slash manager, the job title hasn't been official yet, or we don't know, but it will most likely be head coach. And just look at the game that was played a few days ago against Man City. The first goal they scored by Krupi, the build-up play for that was just beautifully done. I know they didn't win the match; it was a draw, but they definitely played their brand of football. They didn't really adapt their tactics to play a low block or anything of that nature, and that's what I really like about Iraola. Whenever I've seen him play for, or whenever I've seen his teams play, it's always been the same approach. It hasn't been adjusted based on opponents. It's of course little tweaks will be there, in terms of maybe some games he's played with a back five or he's played a 4-4-2, but it's generally been the same approach, direct vertical football, not sideways passes or anything of that nature. So for me, that's the brand of football that I want to see for Liverpool next season. And most importantly, he is Premier League proven. That is the key there. We can be linked with the next big thing from other parts of the world, but I do feel like at this stage, from a coaching standpoint, it would be ideal if we have someone that has Premier League experience. I'd also go on to say, in terms of player profile, we should be looking at making signings that have Premier League experience. Just because of the nature of the league now, it's become a bit more physical based. It's not as technical as it has been over the years. So I feel like if you've got players that are suited to the English game, it should be where they come in and hit the ground running straight away. So I feel like that would make the perfect sense in terms of the coach, but also the players um, that we could be looking at this summer. And I feel like if we were to go for another candidate like a Honus, that would be regarded as a long-term project. And I don't think, no, I'll speak for myself. I don't think I have time or patience for a coach to implement their ideas, and it takes 2-3 years before we see it coming into full effect. I pretty much want to see us hit the ground running right away now after such a poor season. For me, changes have to be made immediately, and I think Iraola would be the way forward. From a tactical standpoint, it's very much aligned to what the fans want, which is, of course, progressive and high energy football. And I also feel like the players that we have in the squad will certainly fit into his football philosophy. And I feel like we could, challenge for major honors immediately if he was to be appointed as Liverpool coach. So for me, I've warmed up to the idea of Iraola a little bit more in the past week, and I feel like he ticks all the boxes. I would probably said the same thing about Xabi Alonso, but that was me probably more thinking about his history being a former player. But in terms of the profile we need as a coach, I think maybe we've got accustomed to watching heavy metal football, and if it's anything less impactful, then we don't really feel interested. We don't feel like it's our DNA. And I feel like if that is the Liverpool DNA, because it has brought us a lot of success, then we have to go with a coach that is aligned with that philosophy. And I think Iraola is definitely the person that can take this club forward. And also, it might be a small detail, but I do like the way he conducts training. I saw a clip of Semenyo talking about that, you know, since Iraola's been at Bournemouth, they never take days off. They are constantly training every day. There's no rest day. And, every training session won't be fully intense, but after a match day, it might still be a couple of hours of warming down or whatever the sessions may occur. But what it shows me that this coach is fully fixated in making sure that the players are up to standards, that they are ready to go whenever called upon. So for me, that is very, very important, um, because I feel like our criticism from the fan base is that the training hasn't been as intense as it has been over the years. We've heard rumors that they only train for like 20 minutes and slots giving them days off here and there. It doesn't feel like a very high intense working environment. It seems a bit too relaxed. And unfortunately, that's been presented on our football. We're too slow, we're not very responsive. And, that's not the way I want our team to play going forward. So for me, he ticks a lot of the boxes. And I think he would be a great fit all round, in my opinion. So I'm hoping and praying that these rumors are true. If you were to ask me if there's any weight to these stories, I think there is. I think the club may have realized that Slot isn't the right fit anymore, and maybe because of Richard Hughes and Andoni Iraola's working relationship at Bournemouth, I think that's probably going to be the key factor there, because Richard Hughes will probably just present the idea and say, "Look, Iraola did fantastically well under him at Bournemouth. Look what he's done this season. Bournemouth are challenging for a Champions League spot with us on the last day of the season. So it shows how much progression they've made, and they may even qualify for Champions League football after Villa won the Europa League on Wednesday. So that shows you how much of an impact he's had, and he's not going to be looked at as a project manager. Of course, Iraola doesn't have the experience in Europe or managing a big club like Liverpool, but he has Premier League experience. He's managed a club at this level, but also in the Premier League. So for me, that puts him in a sort of in an advantage where there is no settling period of him understanding how the English game is being played. He very much knows what it's all about. So for me, there is no settling period involved. He can come in and have an impact immediately, and I think that's what we want as a fan base because I hope hopefully I speak for everyone. I'm very disappointed in terms of what the team have showcased, and to see Arsenal lift the Premier League trophy, it doesn't sit well. Only because they haven't played, the football that you expect champions to play. And that's not me taking anything away from Arsenal. They thoroughly deserve the Premier League win. And so this is not about Arsenal. This is from a Liverpool standpoint. I feel like if we were able to play our level of football, I think we could have blown teams away immediately. And I feel like we really could have made a charge to at least, you know, try to regain the title and go back to back, or be in a stage where, we're in the final week and trying to get the league title over the line. So I'm fully on board in regards to Iraola. So I'm hoping and praying that the rumors are true. So let me know in the chat what you guys think. Are you on board with Iraola as the next Liverpool coach, or do you have another candidate in mind? Now, before we speak about rumors surrounding players leaving and joining, we will go through the comments and see what you guys have to say. Let's start from the top. Ball, big up Ball. This is big up Ozzy. He says, "What a day! Do you actually believe he is going as well now, Ozzy?" I have an inkling that he may leave now. That I know I've been a bit of a flip flop in terms of my opinion. It's just that before, I think originally FSG would like to have kept him on board or given him another opportunity to rectify things next season. But I think the way things have panned down the last week or two, I don't think they believe that the fans have trust in him, and they're probably thinking that it might make sense to move on. And I also feel like because of Iraola's availability, I think that's probably swayed Richard Hughes' decision to say, "Look, I don't need to scope the market. I know about Iraola. I'm the one that brought him to the Premier League, and look what he's done at Bournemouth. Bournemouth are on the verge of qualifying for at least European football or even Champions League football. It's come to that level, so he's done amazingly well regarding the sources that he's had. He had to sell some of his best players last summer, and also in January he had to let go Semenyo for Man City. But he's brought players in, and they've hit the ground running, and they've really, really performed this season. So I think because of that factor of Iraola and Richard Hughes having a working relationship, I think that's made Richard Hughes' job and life easier in terms of finding the right candidate and to present that case to FSG. It's not a hard sell. They can understand that. Look, he's done so well in the last 2 or 3 years. He's established in the Premier League now. His philosophy is close to what Jurgen Klopp portrayed in his days. And in terms of how Bournemouth are doing, they are on the verge of qualifying for Europe. So it shows you how much progress he's made in a league that's regarded as one of the toughest in the world. So yeah, I'm fully on board, and I'm hoping and praying that it's. But if you were to ask me, do I think it's going to happen? I think so. I'll be very surprised if Slot is still at the job, and considering what's been happening. But only time will tell if that is the case. But the three things that makes me confident. One, usually it starts with a small accounts on X before it comes to the bigger ones. Ornstein talking about a new manager next season on a podcast. Next comment, and he's basically said, Ornstein said, "Let's see what happens with Liverpool after talking about Maresca at City, Alonso at Chelsea. Big difference on what he said earlier. Pierce saying LSU sticking with Slot. No shade towards Pierce, but you always gotta take his comments with a pinch of salt, because I don't mean to just, I don't think he has the sources to let him know what's been happening personally, because he's always late to the party, or he's always negative because he doesn't have validation. So I always feel like he's always quick to shut things down, but doesn't mean that he knows if that's a fact or not. If Ornstein said, look, and even in Ornstein, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. He's presented things about Liverpool in the past that haven't worked out or they didn't come to fruition. So it's one of those things where we can get excited and understand that that it could be a reality, but at the same time, we do have to be careful, not to get overly too excited. But there's a lot of sources suggesting that it could be where the club have made a decision, and it could be where he comes on board now. So let's see, let's see. Boss, if you want to know what happens next when he tweets that it might actually be time to celebrate Aussie. Yeah, it might be time. And yes, it will be a celebration type of show on Football Talk podcast if that is the case. Delulu Steve, big up yourself, Steve. He says, Oz, how is Slot still here, mate? It's a mare. I don't know. I don't know how he's survived this whole season. But we've spoken about this over the months. I never felt like he was going to be sacked. I always felt like they were going to give him until the end of the season and try to rectify things, which is why I had that inkling that maybe that sentiment prolongs onto next season. But I think due to the reception he's been getting the last few weeks, maybe the vision's clearer now, and they've realised that he's just not the right fit for the club. And I'm hoping Richard Hughes is taken on board because, of course, it's his responsibility to bring the next man in, and he's going to bring in a former colleague in Andoni Iraola, so it makes perfect sense. And for me, in terms of the style of football that he portrays, it's exactly what I want to see at Anfield. To be fair, Boss Steve, is he gone after the Brentford? Why would they sack him now with one game to go? So he won't get sacked. I think he will, of course, be the manager on Sunday, and then next week is when we'll get that clarification. There's also been sources that a meeting has already taken place in regards to end of review. I don't know if that is true. My natural assumption would be that you do that after the season ends, but it could be where it's been spoken about this week. I don't really have any, clarification on that, but I'm expecting to get some level of confirmation that Liverpool are going to stick with Slot, or they're going to part ways mutually, and then we have another person that comes in, and he's a manager that is available. We all know that he's going to leave Bournemouth at the end of the season because they've already appointed his replacement in Marco Rose. So you know he's destined to move on to a different club. So hopefully he'll be joining the red half of Merseyside. Boss says, what are your thoughts on Iraola Ozzy? For me, a fantastic coach, but does he have the personality of a Liverpool coach manager, in your opinion? He seems a bit uh, media trained or boring for me. Um, of course, we did the show 2 days ago, and I tried to have a deep dive in terms of what he brings to the table and what is his football philosophy. For me, he is probably the closest fit to how Jurgen Klopp presented it in terms of that heavy metal football, and that's exactly the level of football I want to see at the club. In terms of your comment about personality, he's not Jurgen Klopp. He's not going to have that persona about him. Uh, in terms of the way he conducts himself with the media, I just think he's a very honest and individual. Um, which look, I'll be honest with you, it's not a big deal for me. For me, it's more about him being the right fit for the club. Does he have a connection with the fans? Is he that type of coach? That's what we want. So, if he's able to bring that heavy metal football, he automatically gets that connection from the club and from the fans in terms of the football that's been presented on the pitch, because that's what we want to see, and he'll get that response from the crowd. But I think as time will go on, we will, I think, resonate with him. Just look at with Rafa Benitez. People viewed him as a very cold and um cold and sort of calm sort of figure, and maybe people didn't think he would be the right fit for Liverpool. But of course, as time went on, he fully embodied what it meant to be a Liverpool manager, and that's what you want from your leader. You want them to embody the club. You want them to be representing us in a positive light, and you want it to be where the players are playing for this coach. They're a collective. They're working hard for each other, and that's being shown on the pitch. That's what we want to see going forward. So he might not be a Jurgen Klopp, but then again, who is a Jurgen Klopp in this day and age? So I feel like he would be a great fit for the club from a personality standpoint, but more importantly, on the pitch. I think that's what we need. We need a proper coach to get us playing a different level of football and bring back the days of heavy metal football. That's what I want to see going forward. Boss says I would get behind every manager that comes in now until my last breath because I have had like 6 of months hating this coach. Now I want to feel that emotion again. Will I get that reality? I think you will. I think when you start seeing that quick pace, high intense energy type of football, I think that will get you on board right away because you're seeing an improvement. And I don't mean to be rude. It's not a difficult improvement because of how slow and lethargic we play under Slot, but you're going to see correlations with how we watch football under Jurgen Klopp. So it's going to be that kind of comparison. That's the way I'm looking at it. So, you know, hopefully we get that appointment next week and we'll find out, um, what the future is in regards to the new coach. Boss says the more I look into Iraola, the more I want him to be up there. Him, Honest, or Inzaghi for me. So I know you're big supporter of Honest. For me, um, Holland was more. I found him more intriguing in terms of what he brought to the table, and I think he does have a great future in the game. But for what Liverpool needs right now, it has to be someone like Iraola. So for me, that is the person I want at the club, and for me, he's my undisputed choice. Of course, I'd go with Luis Enrique, but I don't think that's realistic. And I think Fabrizio Romano tweeted today that they're in advanced talks, so that he's going to get a contract extension. I'm very much sure of that. But for Liverpool, I think Iraola would be the best fit for our current situation. LFC Monster says, "How's it go, bro? Looks like those early rumors of new managers looking to be true. I'm praying and hoping it is. So yeah, let's see what happens." Ray said, "Big up Aussie in chat. Big up Wayne. Hope you're well." LFC Monster says, "Might give us the edge on a couple players like Krupi." Iraola comes in. Look, Krupi would be a fantastic signing if we were to make that happen. I see him more as a striker, so we probably do need a striker with Ekatike being out for the foreseeable future. I expect Ekatike to be back around February, March, so that's virtually most of the season done. Of course, hopefully there's no hiccups in regards to his rehab. So it could be where we look in the market for striker. Krupi would certainly fit the bill in that regards. Well, so do you think it was all planned, Ozzy? Iraola announced his departure after the decisive weeks and games of slot, which he lost versus City in the cup and PSG in Champions League. Thoughts? In terms of Iraola announcing his departure, I don't want to sound naive, but I feel like there may have been some discussion between him and Richard Hughes. I think even if it is just a bit of a chit chat in terms of finding out what his position is, what Iraola has planned for the future, because I don't think a coach like Iraola would make that decision knowing that I know, of course, he would not have known, that they would be close to European qualification, in terms of two months ago, but he would have had a good idea that the club are going towards the right direction and they could finish at a very high position in the league. Maybe he had some sort of discussion with Richard Hughes. In regards to the other stuff, look, if Slot's losing games here and there, that's not planned. So we can't really say anything in regards to that. Um, but I do feel like maybe there has been some sort of early discussions with Iraola, and maybe that's why these reports are coming out that Liverpool are going to act upon it, and hopefully we'll get some confirmation in the coming days. Both big up to the chat. Armin, big up yourself. He says, slot out. I completely agree with you, Amir, there. Slot out indeed. AR says, big up Aussie, 120 streams, smashed it. When will you finish? I'll probably do, well, how much? We've done 25 minutes so far. Probably do another 40 minutes to be fair. So yeah, I think it'll be an hour show. So yeah, hopefully you're still around. So hopefully you're watching live. So be up yourself for your comment. I know it's a late one. Normally I don't do my shows too late. But I had to talk about it today. I didn't want it to feel like it was old news for tomorrow because I do have a show planned for tomorrow as we'll be doing the match preview of Liverpool versus Brentford. But for this was something I had to talk about. 2 days ago I did a show about different managerial candidates, and I said to you guys, Iraola is the one that I wanted, and look, behold, 2 days later, strong links are suggesting that he's the one that's going to come on board. So maybe an employee within the FSG ranks watch my show, however the case. But if the message has been out there, then I'm glad to see that these rumors are floating around. But more importantly, I'm hoping it comes to fruition. That's the most important thing, because if Iraola is our coach next season, I would be a little bit more excited in terms of what's going to come ahead in terms of the transfer window, the types of players we might sign, and how our football is going to be played as well. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see how it goes. Endless Danger, big up yourself. He says Kirk has played the best under him, one EPL left back of the season. Watch him come in and Kirk has performed like he did at Bournemouth. I totally agree with you. I think it's a weird one, because with Kirkes, I don't know if that was Slot's profile, as in what if that was his first choice signing. Because the way we've used Kirkes, I don't think we've used him to his strengths. At Bournemouth, he was a marauding fullback on the overlap constantly, provided the width and produced a lot of crosses on that left hand side. In this current situation at Liverpool, he's playing with less intensity, which is probably the whole team, but from his standpoint, less intensity, not overlapping as much, and no, he's pretty much holding back a little bit. Maybe there's transitions where he ends up being in part of a back three, because the right back's gone a bit too forward in terms of the shape of the team. So he's not been playing to his strength. But under Iraola, I think we'll see the best out of him. And Iraola tends to play a 4-2-3-1. I know there's been times where he's played a 4-4-2, and he's also played a 5-4-1 as well. So in any formation that I've just listed, Kerkez will be playing as a proper fullback, where he's bombing down the flanks, as well as the person on the right hand side will be doing the same as well. So it will be continuous attacking play on the wings, and that's what we want to see. We want to see pace. We want to see people with a drive, and carrying the ball a little bit more. This season, we've just been so lethargic, no real pace, no real direction in terms of taking on the fullbacks. And in the middle, we've been absolutely soft. People getting through us like it's nothing. So yeah, it's been quite disappointing. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we'll see the best of Kerkez if Iraola makes the move to Liverpool. But also, Iraola played some of his best football in his playing career under Bielsa. Yes, it's very clear he has taken those days into his coaching career. That is something I love for Susie. I think you definitely have a valid point there. When you are playing under specific coaches, you definitely fall in love with their ideology, or you are fully connected with the way they play football, or you have a common sort of interest in terms of how football should be played. So I think with Iraola, he's definitely learned from Bielsa, and I think he's definitely taken his best traits and he's applied it in terms of his managerial career. So yeah, you may have a point. I feel like that could definitely play a part. Finally, Kirkes won't be cutting anymore. Yes, I don't want to see Kirkes inverting, which is funny because I watched a clip of Kirkes doing an interview. I think this was before Bournemouth, or it might have been when he first joined Bournemouth. And he basically said that he liked inverting. That was something that was one of his strengths, where he likes to invert and be impactful in a more central position. So he regarded himself as not a typical left back, but sorry, he needs to play like a typical left back, and he needs to be on the overlap. You know, in some moments it's fine for him to be, underlapping, but I think the general process, or the focus should be where he's playing on the outside, because of course if he's got someone like Rio in front of him, Rio would definitely occupy the wings a bit more, so that way they can interchange and just present a bit of unpredictability on the wings, which is what we want because we've been so predictable. We get man marked and no one knows what to do after that. And then they pretty much close up shop on us. So for me, we'll see. We'll definitely see the best of Kirkus, and he'll be inverting or overlapping. But I see him doing more of the overlapping, which he did at Bournemouth, and I thought he did it to a great standard as well. LFC Monster says, in it, no more inverting Kirkus. That's done my head in all season. Yeah, it hasn't worked out. And so I agree. I think that needs to be changed. Boss, I fear Iraola wants to manage Madrid or Barca in the future, though. Look, that could be a possibility, but I'd rather have him now and think about that further down the road. For me, that's not going to be a deciding factor in terms of appointing him. Any coach that we get, they're always going to have interest from other clubs. It just shows you how great they are, what quality coaches they are as well. So that shouldn't hinder our approach in trying to get Iraola, because if that's going to be the case, then you might as well stick with Slot because no one else wants Slot at the highest level. So that's the way I think it should be done. It should be where we get the best that is the right fit for our club. And look, whatever happens in the future will happen. I'm sure we'll find other candidates. Maybe Holness becomes a bit more established, and then he ends up being the next one in line after Iraola. If Iraola wants to leave after a few years, I'm just trying to paint a scenario here. So I don't think that should determine your thinking in terms of if we should go for him or not. I think we need to figure out what's best for the club right now, rather than what's right for the club in the future. I don't really care about that far down the line. For me, we need to find solutions right now, immediately. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And I'm hoping, Iraola is the one that comes in. AR says, Iraola, I don't want him. He isn't a born winner. He won't take us forward, more like sideways. I have to disagree, AR. Of course, that's your opinion. But if you're still watching, please do let me know who would be your first choice, because I'm sure you don't want Arne Slot at the club for next season. So who would you regard as your first choice? I'll be intrigued to know who you have in mind, because I feel like you don't have to be a natural born winner. As a coach, I don't feel like there is a natural born winning coach, if that makes sense. There are coaches that have a philosophy of winning by any means, like a Mourinho. Mourinho doesn't really care about the style of play. He just wants to win. But that's more of a thought process, that's more of a mentality aspect of his sort of demeanor. But in terms of the coach, from what I've seen, especially under Bournemouth, they've really improved over the last 2, 3 years under his tutelage. So I definitely feel like he's the one to take us forward. But yeah, you can let me know in terms of what you think and who you would regard as the first choice. Double D, big up Double D as always. He says, I take Iraola. Yeah, I'll co-sign that. I would take Iraola, but I think for me, he's my first choice right now. South Asian Scouser, big up yourself. He says the club travel agent is gonna share it. Um, oh, he's gonna hate it. He said. Amrish says, big up Aussie, your channel and your takes are so underrated. You should invite other influencers like Kopish, Fozzy, Jamie, BNR. So I've had Fozzy and Jamie on the show before. I've not had any of the Kopish members, but I have worked with them on other channels. BNR is something that we've spoken about behind the scenes, but we've just never had time to do it. But that would be my goal for next season, to try and have more LFC content creators on the show. So yeah, I'll just say watch this space. Hopefully, we'll have more of that, especially when the new season begins. We'll try and do a lot more collabs and try and get more people on the show and give you guys different types of content as well. So yeah, hopefully we'll have that on board in the coming months. And you said you deserve better, my brother. We appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much for your comment. Wayne says if Slot is going, they should announce it before the game, so Sunday the fans can say bye to the players properly without the board fraud. I would say no to that, Wayne, only because I don't want Slot taking any limelight from the players departing. So if, well, we know Robertson and Salah are leaving, we know that, but Allison could also be leaving as well. So if Allison's overly emotional, the writing's on the wall, isn't it? So let's say that is a scenario. I don't want there to be an announcement for Slot leaving, and it becomes all about him because that's not what it's about for me. It's about these three legends. Oh, I'm going to say two legends. I don't want to paint the scenario that Alisson is leaving. So let's just say two that has been confirmed in Robertson and Salah. They're leaving. So for me, they deserve a proper send off. And I know Arne Slot brought us a Premier League title. I'm not going to take that away from him, but I don't think he deserves that kind of reception. So for me, no, don't announce it. Even if the decision has been made behind the scene, don't announce it. Let those two legends get, what they deserve. They deserve a proper send off because they are two Liverpool legends. And then after that, just do it as a do it as a tweet or a little post on the website and say, we've parted ways with Arne Slot. I don't want Arne Slot to have the microphone and start talking nonsense. I don't want him to have that kind of coverage. So for me, it's all about the two legends that are leaving. That's the most important thing. So no, I'll have to disagree with you. I don't want it to be announced before the game. Um, Paul says he has taken Bournemouth to Europe for the first time in their history after losing their best players every season. Football is not always about winning trophies. Getting Europe with them is a trophy. That's true. You have to look at the caliber of clubs in terms of, their history and their ambitions. And I'm sure they had ambitions to one day play in Europe, but do they think it was going to be a reality? Probably not. Of course, they would have had high hopes with Andoni Iraola because he was very highly regarded in Spain. But even in terms of what he's achieving or he will achieve, which is European football by the end of the season, it probably surpassed their expectations and it probably was a dream required more than anything else. So because of that, you have to, tip your hat off. You got to appreciate what he's done. Um, and, he's leaving at the club at probably the best time where he's helped them achieve something that was the unthinkable, and he's left them in a good position. So, you can't fault him because, of course, he's got ambitions to move on, and hopefully those ambitions are to come over to Liverpool because that's what I want to see um, in the near future. Yeah, says to South Asian Scouser, do you rate Iraola? S- Um, Amr said no one is buying their merchandise and tickets. They felt it. Yeah, they're gonna feel it a bit more now. And I feel like if that Iraola signing or that appointment, I should say, does happen, then I feel like more fans will be on board. More fans will actually go out and buy the new Liverpool shirt and merchandise and all that sort of stuff. 'Cause I feel like there's a lot of fans that are slightly holding back. I haven't bought the shirt yet, but maybe, if Iraola comes, then I've got a bit more excitement going into next year. Because right now, I don't feel like as excited. I'm a little bit wary in terms of what we're going to do in the summer. But if we do appoint Iraola, it kind of changes the outlook completely. So let's see what happens. Hopefully, we'll get some sort of announcement in the coming days. Boss said it will be after the game. Yeah, it has to be. It can't be before or during the game at all. Darius D says, I remember I was doing shows where he said Xabi Alonso was the perfect candidate to replace Slot. Then look where he went. Look, I did say Alonso was the perfect one, and I do believe he would have been a great fit for us. But I think I might be wrong here. I think basically because we made that approach a couple of years ago when he was the Bayer Leverkusen coach and he turned us down. I think that's just left a sour taste, and they probably just thought they felt mugged off, and they were like, "No, we're not gonna speak to him again, or he's off the short list now. He's off the list completely." And that's what might have happened, because he wasn't open to the idea the first time round. They're thinking, "Oh, we got to find someone else." So that might be the reason why we didn't really pursue. I know there's reports saying that there were slight talks, but I don't think there were. There's also reports suggesting that we were never even in for him. So, believe what you will. But I do feel like he would have been a great fit for the club in terms of the connection we had with him as a former player, in terms of his football style, because I do feel like he's got a great way of implementing tactics and his ideas are quite different in terms of the modern game. Some will say it's like Slot. I don't think so. I think it's completely different to Slots. I think it's played with more energy, with more intensity, and it would be interesting to see, what formation he would have gone with. But he's moved over to Chelsea, so good luck to him to an extent. Of course, not too much good luck. Um, but from a Chelsea point of view, I do think that's a great appointment for them, and I can see them switching over to a back three because they've got the player profiles for that shape. And I feel like they've got the players for the wings, and I feel like they've got more players that are effective in the central positions. So yeah, so I do stand by. Look, I'm not gonna say, oh, I'm saying he's terrible. He's rubbish or anything like that. I still rate Alonso. I think he's a great coach, and just because of what I saw at Leverkusen, I was very impressed in terms of the brand of football they played. Of course, that was just one season, so maybe that would have been, or it could have been his peak in terms of his manager career. Who knows? Only time will tell. But I do feel like he would have been a great fit for us. But of course, he's been appointed as a Chelsea manager. So we have to look elsewhere and move on. So for me, I've moved on. I'm on to bigger and better things, hopefully, and I'm looking towards Andoni Iraola as the next one to come in to replace Arne Slot. That's what I'm hoping and praying for. South Asian Scouts this is to AI says I do rate him, but with the Liverpool job, it's more than just coaching. He needs to be able to handle the bright lights that comes with the expectations and scrutiny at our club. That is very true. I think from a coaching and a football philosophy standpoint, I think Iraola fits the bill in terms of his personality and being able to handle the pressure at the club. There will be question marks, but then again, any coach we would appoint, it would always be a question mark. The only one that we feel like would adjust would be an experienced coach like a Luis Enrique. But of course, he's not a realistic target in my opinion. Pep Guardiola is available, so can we go in for a cheeky approach there? Um, that's more like fantasy football right there. But there's certain caliber coaches that they'll handle that pressure. Of course, Iraola hasn't been in this position, but then again, the profiles that we're looking at, they probably haven't been in this situation either. So he's got an edge on other candidates in terms of him having Premier League experience. So for me, I have to give him that opportunity. But as long as the football philosophy ties with what the fans want and what the players can kind of, you know, go towards in terms of, appreciating, his philosophy and that they're fully on board with him, I think that's the most important thing right now. Um, Anfield Junior was right all along. Go put my hands up there. It hasn't come up to reality right now. Well, if it is a reality, they'll definitely get their credit. But right now, um, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. Salvation says, I think at the moment we want Slot out so badly, we might be a little bit desperate. We need to be careful who we get next. I do hear you. We might be quite desperate in terms of finding someone right away. But I do feel like after doing a bit of deep diving in terms of Iraola, in terms of his philosophy, what he brings to the table, I do think he's a good fit for us. But that's just my opinion. Wayne says if Iraola comes in, I think we see us playing better straight away. But is he good enough to win the league and Champions League? That would be the big question mark there. But I think because of the wealth of quality players that we have in our squad, and hopefully we'll be able to add more players. I feel like his managerial stance would up a level as well, and that puts us in a great position. So I think he can. I think if he sticks by his principles and plays the football that we have seen at Bournemouth, I feel like we could go places. Both everyone is better than Slot. Yeah, that is fair. To be fair, um, and Rich says, I don't think they will appoint him because he has no experience in Europe. FSG will definitely consider this as they depend on the money we receive in that tournament. However, Hughes can ref him. So that's the thing. Because of Hughes, I think that's a big factor there. I think he will present the idea and say, look, he might not have Champions League experience or Europa League experience, but as a player, he still played to a high level. In terms of the coaching, look at the way he's transformed Bournemouth to a team that is, before were probably thereabouts to relegation zone, 2, 3 years ago. Now they're competing and they're challenging for a Champions League spot. So, he's really flipped the script. So I think Hughes will definitely fight the case and say, look, this guy is the way forward. We've got to give him an opportunity. So yeah, hopefully we do. Hey, said who needs to redeem himself and get Iraola? Yeah, I agree with you. But also one thing, Ozzy, why are we seeing links with Jones, Allison, etc. leaving if Slot is going? That worries me a bit, Oz. Can you calm me down? We'll speak about those players and hopefully I can calm you down. So we'll speak about them very shortly. Um, AR saying Iraola. I don't think AR's on board with regards to Iraola there. Joe Harvey, so he says, Slot is leaving confirmed. No, it's not confirmed, but there have been a lot of sources suggesting that it could be the case, but nothing has been confirmed. Nothing has been made official. Uh, so we'll just have to wait and see. But some of the sources are suggesting that uh, Iraola is the top candidate to replace Slot. But I was thinking maybe Wednesday next week. Yeah, I can see it being. I can see it being next Wednesday. To be fair, um, next Wednesday is Eid. So if there is any announcement, I will try my utmost best to go live as soon as possible. If not, it will be a late night show. So if we do get that confirmation, just be rest assured I will come on and speak about it. Um, but yeah, let's see. I'll be on my phone, glued on, making sure I'm refreshing my feed, hoping we get some news. But yeah, I can see it happening midweek. That would be my prediction as well. Double D says tier one journals would not say early that Slot is getting the axe because they do not want to lose access to certain things at the club. Yeah, no, it's true. Those journalists aren't going to be the first ones to say, "Oh, Slot needs to go." And that's the reason why we've not heard that, in volume. But because of what's been happening in the last 2, 3 games, the Chelsea game, the Villa game, he's not painting the image that everything is rosy at Liverpool because it's not. So when you start seeing the cracks and they're a bit more visible, it's easy for journalists to write those sort of news, write the news, and then present that kind of story to the world. So let's see what happens. But more sources are presenting the idea that it could be where Slot will be leaving and Iraola could be coming in. Yeah, Steve says Slot should do the right thing, just step the F down after the game on Sunday. I hear you. And Double D, both agreeing with Double D there. Alt Ferry says time to get Saliba, Rice, Timber, and Raya from Arsenal. 200 M's to boost the defense. Yeah, that would be a dream scenario there. I don't think they'd want to leave anytime soon after winning the league. Bo says Irola can take Bournemouth to Champions League and take over FC in the summer, who then are in the Europa League. I need to prepare myself for the slot presser tomorrow. I just know I will wake up to him saying, I'll be here next season. Should I get worried then, Ozzy? No, he's going to talk nonsense. He's not going to reveal his cards in the press conference. Um, he's been saying that for weeks, but it doesn't mean it's a fact, right? So we'll have to just wait and see. But no, I feel like he's someone that can talk a lot of nonsense. So just take it with a picture, so and hopefully we'll get that clarification soon. Delicious Ozzy, describe the top three things Irola does better than Slot. Oh, where do I begin? I think most of us would do better things than what Slot has shown us as a coach. In terms of the football approach or the philosophy, he's more of a front foot type of manager in terms of the way he wants his teams to play is vertical football. So no sideway passes. With Slot, it's all about triangles and short passes to keep possession. With Iraola, it's full on end to end football, vertical football, high pace, energy. So that's what we'll see under his tutelage. Um, I would say in terms of his career at Bournemouth, he's able to and I don't mean to be disrespectful here, he's able to improve a lot of players within that squad and has made the average player look really good. So, he's got that quality where he improves players that would probably be, regarded as just average slash good players, and he's elevated their game and man management. That's something Slot does not have in his locker, quite frankly. And just seeing how he interacts with his players after the games, whether it's a win, loss, or draw, they fully embrace him, and I feel like you can see the connection between him and the players, and that's something I haven't seen on the Slot. I don't even feel like Slot gets high fives from many people. Um, so those are just three things that just come up top of mind, but there's a lot more to uh, deep into in terms of what he brings to the table. So if he's made into if he's made as the appointment for Liverpool as the new coach, then we'll definitely do a more in-depth show, and I'll give you my sort of take in terms of what he brings as a coach and what to look forward to. But those are the top three things that improve us instantly if he replaces Sot. Um, Bo says, look, speak, football tactics. When he says can't see us getting Krupi for striker, they will put Gakpo up front of needed. Look, if Slot is there, I agree with you. I think it would be Gakpo who stays. But if Iraola is appointed, maybe he has a different approach. Maybe he doesn't view Gakpo as a quality attacker in his squad. He may want to move him on. So that's why if we are going to make that change, make it happen soon. So then that the new guy, i.e. Iraola, can come in and start assessing the squad and make those changes that are needed. So I feel like hopefully we'll get that confirmation soon. Gary says if Slot is out, uh, who bought this centre back from Slovenia? Which centre back are you referring to? Let me know in the chat. Bo said, I think there's a reason why we haven't been properly linked with any players yet. Last year we had already signed Frimpong, Verts, and Kirky was also nearly done something in this Aussie. I think the Frimpong and the Kirkers one, they were announced in June, from what I remember, but we kind of got the inkling that was happening, and the Verts one kind of came out of nowhere. But I believe that was after the season concluded. I might be wrong, but no, but we understood, what was going to happen. Right now, I know we've been linked with the likes of Barcola, Diamonde, players like that, but that's obvious because we need wingers in our team, and that's the profiles that we will be looking at. But you are right, we aren't really close to signing him, or we don't know who is a strong candidate to come in, if that makes sense. So it could be something to it. Where it says, I think Slot did want Kirkers, but misprofiled him. Because if Slot didn't want him, he would be sitting next to Case on the bench. That is true as well. Guys, we need a bit more experience. Bowen for 35-ish million would give Premier League experience. Leader, we need more leaders in the pitch in the position. So that was my take quite recently, and I feel like it might be an unpopular opinion, but I would actually go for Bowen as well. The fee that I've seen roaming around is 25 million, especially if West Ham, excuse me, were to get relegated, which looks like it could be a strong possibility on Sunday. Even if he doesn't come in as a first team starter, I think he provides us with experience, with the know-how of hitting the back of the net in the Premier League. And as you mentioned, he's got leadership quality. He's the captain of West Ham. So I feel like, let's just paint the scenario. Let's say we do sign a Yan Diamonde. I don't think we can just have Diamonde in the team and expect him to produce wonders or hit the ground running immediately because he's 19 years of age. He only had one full season at this level. So that could just be, a sample size of what he can bring to the table, but we haven't seen it in a consistent manner for years and years. So when you've got a player that is very much a young prospect, you do need someone behind them or challenging them that has a bit more experience, that has the know-how of what to do in that position. So I feel like Diamonde and Bowen as two right wingers in our squad will provide the right balance. And one won't be viewed as a squad player. I think they will rotate. And also, I think the smart thing about signing Bowen would be the fact that he can play as a striker. With no Ekitike at the start of next season, Isak has his fair injuries as well, so we do need viable options that can come on and play in that striker role. And I feel like Bowen can play that role very effectively. So he occupies right wing and up top, and I feel like you've got two positions covered, and we shouldn't lack goals with his presence. So I agree. I'm on board with Bowen as a signing. I think a lot of fans are like, no, he's past it, but I feel like it's more of a squad game nowadays, so you have to look at in the bigger picture, not view him as a direct Salah replacement. Diomande, I think, would be that guy, or Akiluche, who's also been very strongly linked to the club as well. So that's the way I would look at it. But also something I haven't found out, Ozzy, is that Iraola good with the youth team from the academy. I think it's group is 16, 17 years old. So he's very young. So he's definitely given him the platform to perform. So that's one indication that I would look at. He's definitely elevated Alex Scott's game. So when he came, he was very much a player of high potential, but quite raw. So he's refined his sort of area. But in terms of academy, I haven't really, looked into Bournemouth in that regards. But Krupi and Alex Scott, I think, would be great examples in that situation there. And Wayne said Kirkes has got better as the season went on. Yes, he has. I think with Kirkes, it was more so getting used to playing for a big club like Liverpool, and I feel like people underestimate that. This is not any team. This is one of the biggest teams in world football, and there's a lot of pressure that you have to kind of accept, and you have to take on board when you hit the pitch. So because of that, I feel like, it was definitely weights on his shoulder. Just look at the opening game against Bournemouth, he was trying to break Semenyo's legs, like, he was all over the place, but that was just him trying to make an impression with the Anfield crowd and try and get them on board. So he's doing too much at that moment. But I think with time, he's understood his role. I think he's built good relations. He's quite close to Salah, which we've seen over the last few weeks. So, maybe having a person of his experience is helping him be a bit more of a calmer presence and just understanding, you don't have to be rampant every time you're on the pitch. Take your time and be a bit more measured in terms of your approach. So we have to consider, he's a new player, he's a young player that came into Liverpool. So there's a lot of expectations for him to have an impact immediately. And if you look at the Klopp teams, whenever we've signed someone, they've always taken a few months to settle in, and then we've get them embedded into the lineup. With Slot, he pretty much threw him in the deep end straight away. So that might have been a mistake from Slot as well. To playing right away. We could have started with Robertson and then eventually transition where Kirk has become first choice, and then he would have been a bit more well equipped to play week in, week out. But I do agree. I think he has improved as the season's gone on. Um, Boss, Bo says, I want to have focus on Robbo and Salah leaving. Yes, I agree. But the club will ruin it with Slot. They should have announced it before, but they won't. I will announce if Slot is going, because I'm not saying it's a done deal situation. If he is going and it's been agreed behind the scenes, please don't announce it on Sunday. Announce it on the Monday or the following week. It doesn't need to be done on the day where we're giving us our sort of appreciation for Robertson and Salah. They deserve a full on sort of a round of applause from the whole stadium. And we need to, appreciate and give them the plaudits on the day and give them the send off that they deserve as Liverpool legends. So for me, that's more important. Could not care less about Slot. He doesn't deserve that enough. Yes, he brought us a Premier League title, but these guys have been there for years and years. And with regards to Salah, he's been disrespected by Slot. So for me, he doesn't deserve any limelight. If he is to go, if that makes sense. Uncle Roz said, "What's up, my brother? Big up yourself, Uncle Roz. I hope you're doing well, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe to Uncle Roz's channel. Um, Boss, have you seen every clip from Robbo doing interviews with Ozzy? He always mentions Klopp and never Slot. It's so clear the players hate him. Yeah, there is not like we say we don't have a connection with the coach. I don't think the players have that connection because I can imagine Slot just being very standoffish in training. He lets the coaches, dictate in terms of what methods need to be done on the day. I don't see him having, pally conversations and not or nothing of that nature. So I don't feel like, he's got those interpersonal skills that you need when you're a leader and when you're a manager of a club. And because of that, there might be a distance. There might not be that kind of togetherness. But at the same time, of course, he spent most of his years with Klopp, so of course he'll have more fonder memories and more of a connection with him. With so he's only been with him for 2 years, so um, yeah. Either way, it's one of those things where you can look at either way and suggest in terms of maybe because he hasn't spent a long time with Slot, he's not going to speak too highly of him. But at the same time, Slot would have been the reason why Robertson's not staying. I'm sure he would have had discussions with the hierarchy and said, "Look, he's a great player, but he's not the player for us right now." So he would have had the influence in that decision making of not offering Robbo a contract because that was the case. He wasn't offered a new contract. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. I saw they unveiled his mural today, close to the stadium, and he signed it on the wall, which was nice to see. Um, Yeah, I'm a little bit sad that he's leaving. I've enjoyed him over the years. He's been such a fantastic left back for us. Um, I I'd probably say alongside John Onorisa, those two are like my favorite left backs at Liverpool. But yeah, he's been phenomenal for us. Yeah, it's just a shame that he's leaving. I would have liked him to have stayed for at least one more year. I think that would have been deserved. But Liverpool have other ideas at the minute. Um, Bosses, I love these late streams, Ozzy. Wednesday, you should get Uncle Roz and Jamie Phillips on Aussie. So Uncle Roz has been on the channel numerous times. So yeah, we'll definitely get Uncle Roz on in due course. The and of course Jamie as well. I've had Jamie on the show a couple of times as well. So we'll definitely get both of these guys on the show. For me, it's just trying to find time to get these guys on the show. It's because of my sort of lifestyle right now where I'm doing late shows. I've started a show at 11 at 1 a.m. It's half two right now, so I've got things to do in the morning. But I love doing this. So I feel like I have to just do this sort of show. Um, and of course, with content creators, I have to appreciate what time that they do content because if they're not doing shows late evenings, it might not fit our schedules. But next season, I do plan on trying to accommodate as much content creators as possible, trying to have different voices on the channel, and then we can have great discussions as a community with the content creators as well. So yeah, big up to Uncle Roz and Jamie Phillips. The guys have been very supportive of myself and my channel as well. So they will definitely uh, be a part of this in due course. So yeah, we'll definitely have some more shows. Got a lot of transfer shows lined up, so maybe I'll get them on that. But when the season starts, they will definitely be lined up for shows during the season. Um, Craig from Anfield Agenda as well is a shout from Bowl. South Asian Scout says, imagine Slot takes the money after the game and says, thank you very much. And says, oh, la. That would be hilarious. That would actually be hilarious. Um, Both imagine Slot getting a microphone and announcing a 3-year deal. What would you do? I would absolutely crash out because I will be doing a watch along, and I do plan on staying after the game and just watching, the players go around the stadium and all that sort of stuff. Um, if that happens, I think I would crash out. If he announces that he is being given a 3-year contract, because for me at this stage, that is unthinkable. That can't be the situation. If I'm being honest with you. Wait says, I agree the players that are leaving should get a proper send off. That's why they should announce him. going so there's no booze. If he gets on the mic after the game, it will spoil it for them. I hope he just doesn't get on the mic full stop. He doesn't need to get on the mic. Last year he did because he won the league. So of course I think he was trying to reciprocate and sing a song for Jurgen Klopp. But he doesn't need to do that this year. You know, he doesn't deserve the microphone, quite frankly. He's got nothing to shout about. So for me, yeah, just don't give him the microphone, please. Bifa, big up Bifa. He says what Iraola did at Bournemouth is extraordinary. I like his style, but I think it's a massive risk. But I'm not against it. It's a risk, but I do feel like anyone else that you look at would be a risk. You know, Sebastian Hoeneß, that a lot of fans are warming towards. He would be a huge risk because he's still very much a young coach, and he hasn't won league titles or anything like that. So he would be a risk, and he's not managed at European level either, and he's not even managing the Premier League. So that's a bit more of a risk in that regards. So I feel like any candidate that we have, and remember, we're not going to go for the Luis Enrique as much as we were trying to, hold on to it and thinking I had it was a possibility because I was trying to put that in the universe, but yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be the case because it appears that he will be signing a new contract extension with PSG, and rightly so. He fully deserves it, and I don't see any reason as to why they should part ways with him either. So because of that, there weren't really any candidates out there like a Luis Enrique. I feel like they can come in and transform the team. Another one might be Nagelsmann, but he's still very young. He's not Premier League proven. Of course, he's done well in the Bundesliga. So there's still question marks about him. Can he adapt to the tactics or the way of playing in the Premier League in terms of his coaching standards? So they're all risk at it. And I feel like that comes with players as well. We probably all thought Isak was a shoe-in to be the top goal scorer and all that sort of stuff, and it hasn't worked. I'm not saying it won't work out, but this season it hasn't worked out. So anything in terms of the football world is a risk, whether you're appointing a coach or you're appointing a sporting director or you're appointing players, it doesn't make a difference. There is always the element of risk. But I feel like this is a bit more of a measured risk because this coach has shown that he has the pedigree to manage at Premier League level. He's improved a team that used to be in the bottom half of the table to now competing for a Champions League position. The brand of football, I think they probably play the best football in the league. And that's not me just saying because Iraola is on my screen right now. Whenever we've played them, we've always struggled with them. They've always played with such high intensity, and that is for me the football I want to see at Liverpool. So if you look at the teams across the league, especially this season, everyone's just deployed that haram ball tactic where long balls and low blocks and all of that sort of stuff. For me, that's not what football is about. And unfortunately, that is the way the league has been going on because of Arsenal, because of teams like that that have deployed those tactics. So there's been more emphasis and focus on set pieces. So because of that, the style has changed of the league a little bit. But Iraola has stayed true to his principles. He's still playing great football, and I feel like that's why their team is getting rewarded. They are able to finish at a high position above Chelsea and all those teams that were competing for a top four place at large parts of the season, and he's going to get European football as a minimum for Bournemouth. So yeah, he definitely has produced wonders, and I think he's done an extraordinary job, as you mentioned, for Bournemouth. Well, said thoughts on the Southampton case, Ozzy. Look, if you're doing illegal stuff where you're sending guys taking iPhone footage, spying on teams, you know, it's not within the rules, so you can't do stuff like that. So I think it's probably the right call, because they've been dismissed from the playoff stage, haven't they? So for me, that is the right thing to do as well. And I think the manager's future is in question. I don't know if he's getting banned by the Football Association or Southampton. Like, yeah, we got to get rid of him. He's a rotten egg, so we can't keep him on board. So either way, I think it's been handled the right way because you can't allow that to happen and then let Southampton continue. And what if they get promoted? What about teams like Middlesbrough that were, I guess, part of that scandal in terms of being spied upon? it wouldn't be fair on others. So I feel like they've done the right thing there. Safwan, big up Safwan says collab with BNR. Hopefully, we'll do a show with BNR in the near future. So shout out to BNR. Great channel doing great content. Wayne says it was cut and dry. They made it in the hearing on Tuesday. Boss saying embarrassing from say it was embarrassing from the Saints. Boss says every player will leave now as well. Their coach is getting sacked. I don't think the players will leave because it wasn't the players' fault as to why they hired someone to spy on them. I don't think the players will leave. Of course, if there's players that have interest from a Premier League side, they'll definitely go. But I don't think most of them will leave, personally. I think they'll stay on board and they'll have to wait in terms of who that next coach will be. Apparently, the fans have turned on the club for it, but not 100% on that. It could be because it kind of tarnishes their image because Southampton's always been renowned for being a family club and doing things the right way. So this wasn't very ethical of them to do, wasn't it? So because of that, it does kind of affect their approach, unfortunately. Also, have you ever thought of getting into coaching, Ozzy? Um, it was always something that I wanted to get into, especially as I've gotten older. But I just never got round to it, not had the time due to just like work and family life. But you never know. You're never too old to coach, I guess. But I'd love to do it. It is something that really interests me, and I feel like I could definitely add value to help someone improve and give them a bit more of a understanding of how the game should be played. But yeah, it is something that I've thought about, but I haven't really actioned it, unfortunately. But maybe one day, you never know. Wayne says, I'm glad Borough got through it because my brother is taking my son to Wembley on Saturday and he's buzzing for it. Oh, that is great there. And I'm hoping your nephew will have a blast in Wembley. Of course, we want Borough to win, so he has a great day. But I think it would be a great experience for him regardless. So, yeah, hopefully, it is a win for Borough. Because certainly Southampton don't deserve to be there from their antics. Um, yeah, so hopefully your nephew has a good day. Bob, big up Bobby says only 7 players left from Klopp's squad within 2 years. Crazy. Wow. Only 7. That is crazy. Yeah, they're definitely getting rid of the furniture, aren't they? They're just not happy. Basically, I'm gonna be a Borough fan for the game because if they get the Premier, I'm getting tickets to the Liverpool game home and away. Oh, that's great for you. So yeah, hopefully they do. And I've always had a liking for Borough. I'm probably thinking more from a nostalgic point of view when they had players like Juninho, Ravanelli. Middlesbrough played some great football in those sort of times there. So yeah, we could see them back in the Premier League. So yeah, I'm all aboard for them to win the playoff final there. Slot tried to ruin everything and achieved. Yeah, he certainly did. Um, Hope Borough win myself. Hull is a nobody. Well, we got Robertson, so we can't completely insult Hull City there. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's a bloodbath, bloody hell. That's a bit extreme there, Bob. David Big Up says Honest. So David is on board for Honest to join, which is fine. I think it's between Iraola and Honest. Those are the two that I'm looking at. But for me, I think Iraola edges it based on him being a free agent because that saves us a bit of money. He's Premier League proven, which is I think very key for us going forward. And I feel like is the closest fit to how Jurgen Klopp implemented his football. So for me, I feel like Irola just edges it. But if it was Honest, I wouldn't lose sleep. I would, be intrigued and I'd be fully on board to support him. But my personal choice would be Irola to join and become Liverpool head coach. Um, uh, so, bro, but I bet, don't tell my son. That's funny. Boss says 10 hour streaming slot is sacked Oz. You never know. It could be a long stream. I don't know about 10 hours because the talk was 8 hours and it went over to 9 and now it's 10. So I appreciate, you guys enjoying my content. You're saying let's do 10 hours. I don't know if I can stay up for 10 hours to do a show like that, but of course, if you guys are engaging like you are today, it should not be a difficult thing to do because I can see a lot of comments and I'm going to try and get round to as many comments as possible just to show my appreciation of you guys being involved today. Um, Imagine all the snacks will, will come out as listen, I've got to have drinks, I've got to have snacks, I've got to have a shisha line, especially if it's like a celebration show. Yeah, I gotta do everything. So and I'll try and get if that news occurs, I'm gonna have to try and get a few content creators to come on and you know have their say as well. So yeah, we'll have to do that. Wasted agrees with Bo. Bob says pressing Iraola as a mini clock. That is the comparison that I've heard as well. So yeah, could be the case. Bo says Gakpo can't play the way Iraola wants, in my opinion. High pressing, man marking all the game through. Well, then we have to sell him, Bo. Simple as that. We've got to part ways, just like we're parting ways with his father-in-law, i.e., Arne Slot. Bolton would like Bowen. I would be on board to sign Bowen as well. I think a lot of fans are split and a lot of fans are not warm to the idea. I think he would be a good addition to our squad. Bolton, that is the type of sign you know I want, Aussie. None of this Barcola, Diamonde crap. So tired of these superstars with high fees. The thing is, Diamonde isn't even a superstar at the minute. He's like a young prospect. And Barcola, I wouldn't even quite say he's a superstar, but he's like a big name to an extent. You know, he's more of a sort of the next young superstar, I guess. But for me, I want it to be Barcola, Bowen, and Diomande. Why can't we have all three? Might sound greedy, but that's how I'm looking at it. Barca can Gakpo and Isak play the football Iraola once Aussie? I really don't think so. Gakpo, I think you make a valid point. In terms of Isak, I think Isak can still play. You know, we haven't seen it in the Liverpool shirt, but in the Newcastle shirt, you know, he still was able to press. He was quite aggressive in his play. I feel like he can suit the way Iraola wants the football to be played. And also with Iraola, the wingers are going to be wingers. They're going to be, you know, attacking the width. So with that, you're going to have crosses coming in. So I feel like that also Isak a bit more, playing with a bit more intensity and energy. I feel like Isak will be a bit more suited to that. In terms of Gakpo, no. I would personally, I would part ways with Gakpo and try and cash in on him if possible. Group is 19 Aussie, not from the academy. Would he play Murray Home, Farkas, Lucky? Not at the moment. But I would say that I think he'll definitely look towards these players and you know, use them if they are ready for the first team. My assumption would be that he would be fully on board in terms of getting young players through the ranks into the first team. Um, because the slot wouldn't. I haven't seen anything to suggest that would be the case. Of course, Rian Gamoa is in the squad, but I don't know how much involvement he had in terms of Rio being promoted over to the first team squad. But all I know is there's probably going to be an improvement in every shape or form if we dismiss Slot and get someone else in and replace him. Gary says Gakpo should go. McAllister think the end is here for Allison and Curtis to Inter. We'll speak about Curtis regarding the Inter Milan rumors. Allison, I have a feeling he'll go as well. It's not what I want to see, but I think he will go. McAllister, for me, he needs to go. We got to try and cash in on him and Gakpo as well. I know he signed a new contract last year, but for me, um, it would be worth cashing in on him as well. But also, Maka, I forgot he really can't play the football era once was he? You feel me? Probably not. Actually, I don't know. It depends what version of McAllister we're talking about. If it was the one under Klopp, then he can. If it's the current version under Slot, then no. Because it might, as silly as it sounds, it might just be a mental thing. It might just be that because we don't train with that intensity, the players aren't playing with that kind of tempo at all. And there's been games this season where McAllister's been pushed off and he's gotten really pissed off and he's responded with aggression and he's actually done well in certain phases. But his approach and his demeanor is not what was presented when he played for Klopp. So it might just be little things like that where he's not training to that level. So if you're not training with high intensity, he's not going to replicate that type of form into the match. So for me, there's a big issue with the coaching here. And with Slot being head coach, he's not doing a great job. So that's another reason why we should part ways with him. Um, let me try. Arto, big so Arto, he says it would be nice to thank Slot on the last day for bringing the Prem. I hear you, Arto, but I don't think a decision has been made. That's just my personal point of view. I don't think they have decided or they haven't presented the outcome to Arne Slot that he is being relieved of his duties. I think that meeting or that conversation will probably take place next week. But I do understand your sentiment. I just think with what's happening with the club in terms of the likes of Robertson and Salah going, I think they deserve the send off. That should be the first thought process for me. And Arsenal's future is still a bit unclear. Unless if we are told before the game that he's sacked, then that's a different conversation. Then I guess he deserves a send off for winning that title. But if not, I don't think we should waste time doing that personally. To be honest, Ozzy, I think Kirkis gets tranquilized before every game because it's nuts. That's hilarious. What other options in head coach? Yeah, I need to know who you want as your head coach because you've dismissed the idea of Iraola. Um, for me, I presented a few candidates on my show I did a couple of days ago. So if you haven't watched it, uh, do try and watch that on replay so you get a bit more idea in terms of my state of mind right now. So for me, it's the likes of Iraola, is Holness, it's Luis Enrique, Fabregas. Who else is there? The what's his name? Mateus Jaisel. We were linked with him uh, a while back, and Nagelsmann. So that's six candidates I feel like could be looked at as potential candidates, and they all have sort of similarity in terms of playing progressive football, which is what we need to see at Liverpool. Excuse me. I have a fair FSU will think we clap and sing for Slot when we actually do it for Salah and Robos, and I hope not. I hope not. If he does get on the mic, I hope the fans boo. That's what I will say, because then the message will be very clear. KSGB actually says what Iraola won. He hasn't won anything, but he's, of course, brought a team that used to be in the bottom half of the table and they're now possibly challenging or finishing in the Champions League position. He's brought a brand of football that I think us Liverpool fans would resonate with. So he hasn't won much. Yeah, I agree. But, in terms of other candidates, they haven't won much either, unless we're talking about Luis Enrique, which of course is not realistic anymore. Um, and we brought in Arne Slot, who has won trophies in his career at Feyenoord. But would you say that was a good appointment? No. So for me, you have to look at the profile in terms of what they bring to the table. I think his ideology in terms of how football should be played fits the DNA of the club, but also what the fans want to see on the pitch as well. Um, but also gone Europa with Bournemouth is pretty good. Yeah, for a team that's never really been in Europe, it's a fantastic achievement. It really is. Um, let's trust Hughes. Of course, he'll bring another slot. I wouldn't put Slot and Iraola in the same brackets, but I think Hughes knows that Iraola is a coach that could definitely um, elevate the way the game has been played at Liverpool. That's how I would look at it. Um, Hughes will leave soon as well, mate. I think he'll leave after this summer window, if that is his decision. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't think he'll leave now. It'll be definitely minimum after the summer window. Uh, Ray Unicorn says, "Stop blaming Slot for Robert leaving. You don't know what you're talking about." Well, then why is Robertson leaving then? Robertson has said that he wasn't offered a contract. So that would mean that the hierarchy have had a discussion amongst themselves and have said that he doesn't deserve one. It's not just they've forgotten about it all of a sudden and then he hasn't been given one. That was by a mutual decision that they feel like he doesn't deserve a new contract. So that's why nothing was offered. If he was offered a contract where, I don't know, he was presented with less wages and they removed some of the bonuses and he rejected it, that means he wasn't happy with the terms, but there was no terms presented on the table. So that means that Slot didn't want him to stay on. That's what it means to me. So make of that what you will, but it's clear that the hierarchy or everyone involved at the club didn't want to offer him a new contract, and therefore that's why Robertson is leaving on a free transfer. KSG says, I think to sign a coach that had won nothing is a danger. I understand your sort of cautiousness about appointing Iraola, but then who else would you go for? Because Locke came in and won trophies, but for me, he hasn't really done anything, in my opinion. But let me know who you would regard as a top candidate if Slot was to go in this scenario. Slot has been a champion at every club he has coached. Yeah, I guess, but I still don't think just because you've won titles at certain clubs doesn't mean you're the right fit for a club, and I don't think he is the right fit for Liverpool. KSG says, I don't think Slot is the guy, but also let's stop the hype about Ariola. That's your choice. I'm on board with Iraola. I think what he has presented as a coach for Bournemouth, it needs to be spoken about because they're playing a good brand of football, and a lot of teams in the league are not playing that type of football. So we have to appreciate, that he is a bit more forward thinking. That's what you want to see in a coach. To be fair, uh, Bo is saying, why are people like this? Is that in regards to KSG and Rayon comment. It's all good. Everyone is entitled to have their opinion, so I'm not going to bash anyone for having a difference of opinion. I encourage it, so it's all good. As long as it's done in a respectful manner, I have no issues with a difference of opinions. That's why we're here. That's why we're having a football talk right now. So yes, it's all good. Will you be doing watch-alongs for the World Cup odds? Yes, I will be doing watch-alongs for the World Cup. I haven't officially announced it, but yes, I will be doing watch-alongs for the World Cup. Also, would be smart doing business before the World Cup prizes can get up. Prices, you mean that? Yes, can get after some. Yeah, so if we've got players in mind that might not be high profile, got to try and get them on board. Or even if they are high profile, the stock can rise, cause isn't it? So because of that, yeah, I agree. If there are players that we have in mind or we've been in dialogue with behind the scenes, try and get those deals wrapped up. So yeah, I do agree. Uh, do you think Stock will stay in the Prem odds? Um, he could do. He could. I'm trying to think who would appoint Slot as a manager. I would have said Tottenham, but they've got Deserbi now, so I think Deserbi is a good fit for them. Um, I don't know. Tottenham would have been my first choice that he would have gone on to because there was strong interest from Spurs about 3 years ago, before a year before we appointed Slot. But he turned them down because he didn't think he was ready, or I don't think he wanted to move at the time, or maybe he was looking for another club. Who knows? But yeah, he can still he can still have a role in the Premier League. I can't see why not. But if I was to make a prediction, I'd probably say maybe he returns to the Netherlands and manages Ajax. I think Ajax would be a great job for him. In such an established club in the Netherlands. So maybe that could be a role that he looks towards. Both says the players will leave because they have been let down by the club. Yeah, I hear you. Ozzy as Iraola's assistant. Why not? Why not? Get me on board. Sir Klopp's players are getting old. Football is a young man's sport. I hear you. There are certain positions where I do agree. It is a young man's game, and that's probably one of the reasons why I've said that. I understand why Salah is leaving. I think from Salah's point of view, it's more based on politics within the club. Having a breakdown in relation with the coach and the hierarchy not being supportive of the player there. So there's more to it. But of course, with Salah, I feel like there has been a bit of a decline in terms of his level of play. But that's also because we're asking him to play like he's 25. like an out and out winger. That's not his game anymore. Me personally, I would have moved Salah to play in a bit more of a central role. If Salah was to stay next season, I would play Salah as a striker. Alongside Isak or behind Isak in terms of as a number 10 maybe, or as backup on paper, however you want to phrase it. So that's what I would have done. In terms of Robertson, I feel like Robertson still has a lot to give. I don't think he's in a decline as such. Yes, he's lost a bit of pace, but I feel like his understanding of the game and him, having players like Rian Gamora around him, he could definitely be a great mentor for those type of players. I feel like his experience would have been vital for us in the long term. But yeah, a decision has been made, so we'll have to wait and see. Um, Arthur said Iraola will improve Kirkhead, brings in Krupi and Senesi with Cook. I would love to see Senesi at the club. I think he's a fantastic centre back, big, strong, but so good on the ball. He's like a playmaker from a centre back position. So I would definitely like to get him on board. And on a free transfer, why not? Boss, it doesn't matter if you are 17 or 37, as long as you're good enough, age doesn't matter. Yeah, I agree. If you're good enough, you should be involved. I think Salah and Robertson probably could have played for the club for at least another year, as well as Alisson Becker. But of course, situations changed. Robertson wasn't given a contract offer. Salah had a breakdown in terms of his relationship with the coach and the hierarchy. So, of course, sometimes it's not always a football decision that presents the outcome of a player leaving a club. There's other factors involved as well, unfortunately. Man says Barcola crap. No, no. Barcola is not crap. Um, Barcola is probably for me one of the main targets that we should be looking towards um, this summer. That's Ozzy's main client. Yeah, yeah, he's part of the. He will be part of the clientele for next season for sure. Both I didn't call him crap. I called those title signings crap. We need more of those robo signings. I know what robo means. I know what Bo means in terms of making those robo type signings. Hopefully we make those type of signings this summer because I don't feel like we can go and just splash the cash um, like we did last summer. I think we're gonna have to be a bit more strategic, a bit more sensible in terms of our approach. Uh, Wait, said, Ozzy, why do you hate me? Ali isn't going. I'll speak about Ali and I'll tell you why I think he might leave. I don't want him to leave. I think you know that as well. But I don't know, it just feels like something's happening or something's brewing in the background. Even the way Slots answered that question in the back, or should I say in the press conference, he's not suggested that that because normally he's very dismissive of transfer talk in his press conferences, but with Allison, he says he's like, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So that shows me there's been dialogues in the background, and that's not it for me, unfortunately. Bola says, I see there are still people out there who wants able to stay when he has a few days left on his contract. If he really wanted to stay, he would have signed a year ago, get him out. Um, in regards to Kanate, it's a bit of a strange situation because I feel like he was under the impression that everything's done and dusted, and it was just a matter of time that he just physically signed the contract. I don't know if the club have shown a different stance or have had a bit more of sort of like a hold off sort of approach where they're like, look, let the season conclude and then we'll have another discussion and then we'll finalize the details again. Um, I personally don't mind Konate staying. I do think Konate is a good defender. I know he's not had the best of seasons, but then again, who has? So I feel like he would be a good signing or a good sign, as in a good player for us to keep on board, and also help the likes of Jack Hay transition into the team with both of them being French players. So that's how I would look at it personally. But let's see. I'm sure we'll get some confirmation soon for that as well. Um, uh, Ray says, hoping the right fit takes us straight to relegation. I don't, I don't agree with that at all. I think Slot has a better chance of taking us to relegation, personally. Balls asks, who does Ray want? So, yeah, guys, if you don't agree, that's all good, but do present who you would regard as a first choice. It's all good and well to dismiss suggestions on the channel, but please let me know what you guys think. So, who would you want as an opponent, whether it's realistic or not? I'd love to get your take on this topic. KC says Iraola is another Brendan Rodgers. No, I don't agree with that personally. I see more similarities with Slot than Iraola with Brendan Rodgers. The similarities with Brendan Rodgers and Slot is that it's not from a philosophy standpoint, because I feel like Brendan Rodgers had a bit more of an attacking sense in terms of how the game should be played. But they do have an element of arrogance about them, and I feel like it's more delusional than actual facts in that scenario. So that's where the correlations are, I think. Uh, so KSG said Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann's not a bad shot. It really isn't. It's just that his situation with the German team is not going to be an easy fix. So when I say it's not going to be easy fix, it's not going to be easy to get him out of his contract and then get him on board at Liverpool. And also with the World Cup taking place in a few weeks' time, he is in full-on preparational mode for that. So if we were to appoint him, it would be after the World Cup, which would be at the end of July. But by then, the season starts mid-August, so he's only got like a month to figure out who to sign if he wants to sign new players. But also, pre-season preparation would have been underway before the end of the World Cup. It would have been a week or two before. So for me, that Nagelsmann would be a rushed appointment, if that makes sense. I think in theory he actually would be a good fit because of his sort of flexibility to changing different systems. I've seen that, in his days at Leipzig and at Bayern Munich. So I think he would be a good fit. Now he'll definitely get the best out of Florian Wirtz, which is what I want to see. With him being one of my clients, as everyone likes to say on the channel. But I don't think he's available. I don't think it's going to be easy to appoint him, which is probably why um, fans were under the assumption that we stick with Slot. And if things don't work out, we get Nagelsmann mid-season, for example, which could be the case. But I feel like, that's us hoping more than anything else. And also, I've also heard that Nagelsmann wants to stay on until the Euros. So if that's the case and he's on a mission here, he might not want to switch sides so soon. But Nagelsmann's a great show. I don't think that's a bad show at all. He's flexible with systems. He won trophies. Yeah, I agree. He's definitely flexible with systems. Um, does have that Pep Guardiola training him where maybe he overthinks a lot in terms of tactics. But no, Nagelsmann's a great show. I don't think that is a bad shout. So I think for someone so young, he's only 38 years of age, but he's so experienced at the highest level. Like he could still be a long-term project, if that makes sense. So for me, he would be good. He would be a good opponent, but I just don't think he's available, unfortunately. He's with the German team. Of course, he isn't leaving. But I gotta go, Aussie. Been a long one till already. Big up Aussie and Chan. Big up yourself, Bob. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate your comments as well. Uh, more of these longer streams. Yeah, we'll definitely try and do some more longer streams during the off season. Now, few rumors to talk about in sort of quick fire rounds, and I'll give you guys my take on what has been happening. So, as mentioned earlier on, Curtis Jones is continuously being linked with a move away from Liverpool, and the current report from Italian outfit Tuttosport is that Jones has well and truly fallen out with Slot and is pushing to leave Liverpool this summer. His contract expires in June 2027, and he has no intention of signing a new contract and has sent signals to Inter Milan about possibly joining them, as they were very close to signing him in January. So my thoughts on this: if Arne Slot is confirmed as the coach for next season, Curtis Jones will 100% leave. They've definitely had a breakdown in communication. They have fallen out, and I don't think they probably see eye to eye. So therefore, Curtis Jones would probably rather move on rather than stick around. And I don't blame him in that scenario. If Slot is still there next season, he's had strong interest from Inter Milan, and I can see him joining there. To be fair, I would be very disappointed to see him go because I feel like he can add so much to what the team has showcased this season, and I feel like he's been one of our consistent performers this season as well. So for me, I would like him to stay. Now, if there's a decision next week about Slot not being part of the club and then we appoint another coach, then the spectrum changes completely. Then there might be a possibility that John stays, but also it has to comes from the hierarchy. Do they want to give him a bumper deal? Do they want to give him a new contract? Because if they're not fully on board, then it doesn't really make a difference who the coach is. And the writings on the wall that Jones has to leave this summer. But we'll wait and see, who the coach is, because that could change the way it looks like in terms of the future of the club. Now, next player is Mamadou Sangare. So the Mali international has been linked with a move to Liverpool as well as other Premier League teams. The 23-year-old is valued at £43 million. So my thoughts on the player: I've watched him a few times in terms of compilation. I haven't watched him live that many times this season. Uh, Looks like a great talent, very, very good on the ball, a ball carrier, but defensively sound as well. Good in terms of sniffing danger and closing up shop when needed. So for me, he is a very talented player. Definitely someone we should be looking towards signing this summer. I would probably say that, in my opinion, I think Adam Wharton would be regarded as one of the top targets for the midfield. If he was not attained, then I think Sengai would be a good alternative because they're both left-footed midfielders. They do share sort of similarity in terms of their style of play. So maybe Sengai could be looked at as an alternative rather than both players joining, because it wouldn't be the right balance to have two left-footed centre midfielders. But in terms of the price, £43 million, peanuts. So I would be fully on board. And I do like the look of Sangai, very, very good on the ball. So I think he will add a different dimension to our team. Um, Another player is Bazumana Toure. So he is a player that plays for Hoffenheim. Apparently, Hoffenheim are prepared to cash in on onto Toure this summer after missing out on Champions League football. You've got the likes of Villa, Liverpool, United, and Newcastle all tracking the highly rated winger. He is also valued at £43 million. So my thoughts on Traore: I've seen a few compilations of him. Very quick, very dynamic on the ball. My concerns would be that he looks a little bit lightweight for the league, and I think he will struggle with the physicality. So I'm not fully on board with the signing of Toure. He looks like he's very talented, does have a lot going on, but I feel like he's not suited for Premier League football. But that is just my opinion. Got a few comments there from Ray. Ray said, I want the toxic air hanging over the club to clear. Salah, Robo, Jones, Granberg, and Konate are uh, well, that was saboteurs. Salah and Robbo are leaving, but I wouldn't say they're the reason why there's toxic air. I definitely disagree with that. Salah, you may have that viewpoint. I don't think so. I think what he's presented himself has just been honest feedback. Of course, the timing of the Leeds one maybe could have been dealt with better from his part. But in terms of the social media post he presented last week, for me, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think he's just speaking facts, quite frankly. Robbo, I don't know what Robbo's done to make you think that there's toxicity within the squad. Jones, no. So you sound like you're more in support of the coach rather than the players here, which is fine. Um, Jones had a disagreement with the coach on the pitch. That happens. It's human nature. You had disagreements. The game is full of emotions, so it happens. So I'm not sure why that's an issue. Groundberg, no idea into the why you've listed Groundberg there, and Konate, no idea why you've got him there either. So yeah, interesting take there. Ray said John is a legend in his own mind. I wouldn't say Jones is a legend. I think, we gotta watch how we use that word legend. I don't think everyone deserves that title. But I do feel like he's been a great player for us over the years. He's been very reliable. I wouldn't go for us to say he's a legend. That's a bit too strong for me. Whereas if Slot leaves, guarantees John stays. He loves the club. I agree. I hope that is going to be a case. I do feel like he has a big role to play for us in terms of the short to medium term of the club. So yeah, hopefully he does stay. I would love to see that. Now, on to the next rumor is regarding Hugo Larson. So Man City have made contact regarding a summer move for Sweden's Hugo Larsson. Liverpool are also pushing for the Frankfurt midfield as part of their midfield rebuild, while Tottenham were prepared to make him their record signing if they stay in the Premier League. So my thoughts on Hugo Larsson, we've covered him in the past as well. I think he's a fantastic all-rounder. He is a box-to-box player, but this is played more of a deeper role in a double pivot. So because of that, he's been more defensively focused. He's one of those players where, he's full of energy, full of drive, might not be silky on the ball as such, but he's a worker, he's efficient on the ball. So kind of like what we had with like Genie and Henderson, those type of players that might not be. I'm probably thinking more Henderson than Genie because I did like the way Genie played, but I think with Henderson, the Henderson had fantastic technical skills, but I feel like he wasn't a Gerrard, he wasn't that type of midfielder. And of course, with him being captain, that was always the comparison. But with Larson, it's a similar style where he's full of energy, full of drive, um, always committed to the cause. So I feel like he would be a good addition to our squad, and that's what we've lacked in our midfield. So he would be a good signing. Of course, he probably cost about 50, 60 million. But I do like the profile. I do think he's a good signing. Um, the Lucy says, do you think everyone who was on the pitch in 2005 Istanbul is a legend of the club, Aussie? Uh, ah, yeah, I would say so, based on what happened because that was a very historic moment, and I feel like that is how we view some of the players. Traore, Biscan, they weren't you know players that lived up to the bill during their time at the club, but for what they did on the pitch, it has to be applauded. So especially, Biscan in terms of the road to the finals. Smitsa, who barely played that season, but he came on and had a huge impact in terms of how we won that game. So yeah, I'd probably say yes. Um, but it's more so for that moment. Not can't call them club legends in that regards, but for that day, yeah, you have to. Maybe cult hero is probably the right title. Um, Rather than legend. Legend sounds a bit too strong because I'm always very careful of using the word legend. I don't feel like everyone deserves that title personally, but everyone deserves huge praise to what was achieved on that night because it was absolutely sensational. And I know Netflix have released a documentary about that night, so I have to watch that because it will definitely revive some great memories because that was a crazy match to watch live. It really was. Okay, on to the next rumor is Antonio Nusa. Now, Liverpool apparently could turn their attentions to Nusa if a move for Diomande becomes difficult this summer. Leipzig are reluctant to sell Diomande and do not want to lose both wingers in the same window. So Nusa is being considered as an alternative target for Arne Slot. So my thoughts on Nusa, a player I really like. If I was to compare to any players we've had recently, I would say he's quite similar in terms of style with Luis Diaz. In terms of his dribbling, his approach in the game, his uh, way of attacking the byline, but also coming in field and shooting from distance. So he would be a good signing. I don't think he'd cost too much, but he's more of a left winger rather than a right winger. Diomande is regarded as a right winger. I think we would have pictured him as a replacement for Mohamed Salah more than anything else. So for me, um, he would be a good alternative for the left wing. So if Gakpo was to leave, he would be a good addition. But of course, it depends on who the club are profiling in terms of who they want to see going forward. Um, Messi, to be honest with you, I feel all we are going to do in the window is replace players, leaving and leave us in the same position we are already in with not enough on the bench. I think so. I think it will be replacing players. I think there will be an upgrade in terms of quality, but it won't be players added to the squad, if that makes sense. Um, Steve said I watched the Oz just last night, but Carragher had way too much screen time in the documentary. I need to watch it, and I'm not happy that he's had too much screen time because that doesn't fit well with me. But yeah, I'll definitely be watching it soon as well. And last couple of rumors: Mohamed Salah. Um, the rumor is that he is open to a shock move to Fenerbahce this summer. The Liverpool star wants to remain in European football, and positive talks have already taken place with the Turkish giants over a potential free transfer from Liverpool. So, my thoughts on this: we spoke about this about a couple of weeks ago, and the figures that were mentioned that he would earn about 17 million per season, which is an amazing amount of money. There's a 51 million in 3 years because they are planning willing to offer him 3 year contract. If he wants to stay in Europe and earn that kind of money, Fenerbahce would be a great shout in that regard. So I feel like there's something there, but I've always thought he would go over to Saudi Arabia. I'm still going to hold on to that prediction. But if I was to have an alternative, Turkey could be a realistic move as well, based on it being a Muslim country. Maybe that appeals to him in terms of lifestyle and moving to that part of the world. But yeah, I do feel like he may want to stay in Europe. At the same time, I feel like the Saudi move is still on the cards as well. Mark, big up Mark. He says, when Slot leaves, my blood pressure will return to normal. If he stays, I might get a mirage party. I hear you, Mark. I don't feel a lot of. I feel like I thought the fan base was more Slot out than Slot in, but we've had a few comments today that seem like there's still Slot in fans out there. But I agree. I've not enjoyed the brand of football we've been playing this season. Um, I find us awfully boring to watch. So much so, I do watch alongs, and I have literally dozed off during watch alongs, which is embarrassing, but it's not something I can control because it's been that boring from watching Liverpool play this season. But it has been stressful. I will definitely agree. It has been very stressful supporting Liverpool this season. Um, and I feel like the club needs to do the right thing and just part ways and go into a different direction. Sometimes, managers might have, you know, credibility into what they've achieved over the years, but they also might not be the right fit for certain clubs. And I don't feel like Slot is the right fit for us. On to the next rumor is Allison. Now, the current rumor is that Allison still wants to join Juventus this summer, even if they miss Champions League football. So the keeper is fully convinced about Juve's project and is open to playing the Europa League next season. And Juventus want to accelerate talks in the coming weeks. So this news has been lingering for weeks, and that's why I just have an inkling that unfortunately he might leave. And it doesn't even matter what the scenarios with Juventus, if they're in Europa League or Champions League, he still wants to go. So he wants to move back to Italy and play for a big team like Juventus at this stage of his career. And I kind of see it happening, unfortunately. So the big question is, who do we replace Alisson with? Because there aren't too many options out there. But we'll have that discussion, I'm sure, in due course. And the final rumor to discuss is regarding Clayson Bremer. Now, Juventus are going to assess their options this summer, especially if they miss out on Champions League qualification. He's currently on a contract until 2029. Um, so he could be made available if finances were tight and they needed to generate some revenue in order to sign new players next season. So my thoughts on that, Bremer, I remember being a Torino defender, was very good, very powerful, decent on the ball. Um, I don't know how he's been this season, so I can't really comment too much. But you know, is a good defender. Could be viewed as a like for like replacement for Konate. But personally, I'd probably just stick with Konate. He's been at the club, he knows what to expect in the Premier League. So I would personally prefer Konate rather than Bremer. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the player. Um, I am Ghost. It looks like he's a United fan. Bit up for your comment. He says, slot in 10-year contract, please. Never, never, never that. That cannot be an option. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for everyone for getting involved in the chat. I'm gonna try and give out as many shouts as possible. There's been a lot of comments there, so do bear with me. Shout out to Bo, shout out to Dulu Steve, shout out to LFC Monster, shout out to Wayne, shout out to Armour, shout out to AR, shout out to Endless Danger, um, shout out to Double D, shout out to South Asian Scouser, shout out to Amrish, shout out to who else do we have? Shout out to H, shout out to Joe Harvey, shout out to Alt Fury, shout out to Gary, shout out to Anfield Uncle Rods, shout out to Biffa, shout out to Safwan, shout out to Bob Paddock, shout out to David Sultana, uh, shout out to Otto as well. Appreciate your comments, everyone. Shout out to KSG, shout out to Ray, and I think that is it. So shout out to everyone. Apologies if I've missed you, and shout out to Mark, and shout out to I Am Ghost, and yeah, I think that's everyone. So yeah, if I have missed you, apologies. But yeah, shout out to everyone. Thank you for everyone for getting involved. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It literally only takes a few seconds, but it helps the channel so much that I'm able to grow as a channel. I'm able to get more eyes on my content. Like, there's a lot of people today that are new names to me in the live chat. So that's great to see. So if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it will allow the channel to grow and allow the algorithm to help my videos appear on different people's feeds. So yeah, really appreciate if you can do that. Just got a few comments here and then we will close the show. Mark said, what about Lamine Kamara? He's a player that I really like. I think he's probably, for me, one of our top targets for the midfield. If we were to sign him, I don't know if he'll displace anyone in the team, but what he'll do, he'll provide competition, he'll provide quality depth, and I think he can probably ease the burden on Gravenberch a little bit more in terms of being that defensive minded midfielder in our team. But he looks like he's the complete player. Box to box, can defend, can attack, can set the tempo in terms of dictating play. So he's got an all-round skill set. So I feel like he would be a great signing for us. I think he'll be available for about 30, 40 million. So for me, he would be a very smart signing. So that's the one I would like to see come through this summer. Ozzy, you upset with you. Ozzy, you upset me with the Ali news. But big up. I apologies, Wayne. It upsets me to read it out loud. If I'm being honest with you, not the player I want us to see departing, especially with Robbo and Salah leaving. I didn't want to add Allison to that mix, but for me, it's come too soon. But hey, hopefully I'm wrong, and we get clarification that he actually will stay for another season. Gary said West Ham are down, so Bowen is good, safe. It's good, safe, no gamble, versatile, 30 million bargain, solid leader like Miller Gary McAllister. I agree. I think he would be a smart signing. Doesn't need to start week in, week out, but can definitely provide cover and it can provide quality in the right wing position, but also up top. So he could be utilized as a striker quite a bit for me if he was to join. So yeah, I'm on board with Bowen. So let's hope and let's see, what the club has in mind um, for this summer in terms of recruits. In terms of upcoming show, guys, I will be doing a match preview of Liverpool versus Brentford tomorrow evening at an earlier time. This is very late for me, so we'll probably be doing it in 11 o'clock 11 p.m. UK time, and then we'll do the live watch along on Sunday, 4 p.m. kickoff. So I'll be live just before 4 p.m. and then we'll have a match reaction show later in the evening as well. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.